In this video, we're covering outlining, and if you're a huge mind map fan, I'd like you to still watch this video because I'm going to show you some interesting ways to manipulate your data that I think that you'll like. If you're one of those folks who don't care for mind maps too much, I think that you'll find something that you really love here, those nice linear outlines. But I still want you to try the mind mapping from the video before, and you'll see in this video how you can combine mind mapping with outlining to make your production of new matter even easier. So an outline can be something that you've scribbled on a napkin. It could be some massive epic piece of work that you've put together with the dedicated outlining software, or it can be just a simple heading and subheading type of document that you created in a word processing program or even in a text file. It doesn't have to be fancy. One of the advantages that outlining has over mind mapping, in my opinion, is that you really don't need any special tools to do it. So this can truly be done anywhere. And of course, mind mapping can be done on pen and paper in a notebook, but that's not portable onto your computer screen and manipulatable. So you do need a software to be mind mapping. With outlining, you can do that in your standard word processing program. Now here is the mind map that I created in the mind mapping video. Using the free MindMeister software, you're able to actually export what you create inside of MindMeister into several formats. And for this video, what I've done is I've chosen to export what I created in MindMeister as a RTF format, a document outline in RTF, which can be opened in any word processing program. Sometimes it's a lot easier to see problems or identify new connections and ideas when we look at something from a new angle. And that's what we're going to be using outlining for. Whenever I'm working on a big, longer project like this video that I'm making for you right now, and like those longer blog posts that I showed you before that we've seen as examples, I tend to mind map what I want to talk about, and then I actually export it from the mind map and look at it in an outline format to clean things up a bit. When you see things differently, sometimes it will allow your mind to make new connections or realize that you made a mistake somewhere that you weren't able to see in its previous format. So I look at it in both formats, mind map and then outline, for those bigger projects. So let's take a peek at the tomato growing outline as it came out of MindMeister and see what new ideas and connections we can add to it now that we're seeing it in a new light in an outline format instead of a mind map format. Alright, so here's our outline. Remember that we created this mind map about a broad topic. It was tomato growing. And we talked about how this can be a really good way to outline or mind map or figure out what your site as a whole is going to be at, and perhaps identify different categories and things like that that you want to write about. Well, right now what I'd like to do is focus down on just one section of the outline and really flesh out that one section so that then I can create a freestanding article on one of these subtopics. And that's really what I want you to be focusing on here with your mind maps and your outlines, is using them to really sculpt your individual pieces of content. And like I said, they can be used, of course, to sculpt your site as a whole and how you want that to look and be, but they're best used for the purposes of this course to sculpt and shape your individual pieces of content. So I'm going to take this prep soil section because that's what I want to look at. And we'll get a new document here. I've just opened this in Pages, which is the word processor for Mac. You can open your RTF file from MindMeister in Microsoft Word or whatever it is that you use for text formatting on your computer. So in the prep soil section, let's see, we need to have remove rocks. Okay, so first thing before we can remove the rocks is that we need to turn the soil. So I'm going to add that in. And then I'd actually like it to be up here. Okay, we need to turn the soil so that it's nice and loose because plants like that. We should also, and then yeah, we'll remove the rocks as we're doing that. And then we need to add some compost or manure. And we should also test for the pH to make sure that it's the right pH for tomatoes, which is, I'll make a note of that. And I'm going to move this over. Should be 6.5 to 7.0. That's where that should be. Weed barrier, you can also consider gopher barrier, something stronger there. And then maybe we want to add another section in for beneficial insects. Sometimes if you introduce beneficial insects to your garden, they can be helpful. And we also want, along with the stakes, we want deer netting around our individual plants. To remove the rocks, let's say we might want to have a sifter or a screen to get the big ones out and create really, really nice loose soil. And that looks good. So were I to be creating an article on prepping the soil, say for tomatoes, each of these different topics would easily become its own paragraph, and then I would know to hit these little subtopics in each topic. So I would talk about getting a weed barrier and also consider getting a thicker material so that it could work as a gopher barrier as well. I would talk about testing the pH, and then I would talk about how it should be in this range, and then I could talk about adding lime, is it lime? I don't know, to adjust the pH as necessary. So once your outline is done here, you know exactly what every paragraph you're going to write about is, and then what the key points are that you want to hit in each paragraph. Assuming that you've completed Module 1 and you're working through a curation workflow on most days, you really know a lot about your niche and you're becoming an expert in your niche if you weren't already one. I think that we all know that I'm really not an expert at all when it comes to tomato growing, so I can't do this topic 100% justice. But your outlines and your niches and whatnot should be very, very deep and very, very specific since you know your topic so well. I would want to see this be a little bit more fleshed out and longer and have more subsections under each thing before I were to actually write an article on it. Remember to move things around if you need to, and remember that ideally you're going to be doing this outlining process after you've done your mind mapping, and that way you can look at the data in a new and interesting way and perhaps squeeze out any last insights or ideas from it. Seeing everything in this linear kind of format can change your perception of the right order of things. Order isn't considered as much in a free-flowing mind map, so putting it in an outline kind of changes the way that you'll look at it. And you'll probably find that there's a bit more work to do once you have it in outline format before it's actually ready for prime time. And like I said, in this example, I would absolutely want this to be fleshed out more before I went into the writing phase. This isn't a 2-minute process that we do here. I want you to spend a little bit of time and really think about things. Again, we're doing this to expand upon our existing mind map, and we're going through the whole pre-writing process, this mind mapping. Well, first off, this idea collection that we started with creating a list of post and topic ideas, and then doing our mind mapping, and now doing our outlining. That's our pre-writing process, and we're going through all of that so that when it's actually time to create, you have your pump totally primed, you know exactly what you want to say and in what order, and it's much, much easier to actually get to the creation once you have done this pre-writing process. So don't overlook it and do go through this process. Now I'm going to look at a different document in a different piece of software to give you another perspective on outlining and how outlining works. This right here is the mind map that I showed you in the mind mapping video, the one that was about the Always Be Shipping Module 2. I exported that mind map that I created in iThoughts HD on my iPad. I exported it using the OPML format. Now I'm on my desktop computer. I'm using another piece of software called OmniOutliner, and I imported that OPML from iThoughts HD into OmniOutliner, and this is what I have. There's also an iPad version of OmniOutliner available if you're interested in that. But for the purposes of video filming, I'm using the desktop version so that you can see what I'm doing. So we can take a peek at this tree and see the, that's in the wrong place. We can take a peek at the tree and see how all of the information that we had in the mind map actually corresponds to and becomes this outline. The OPML format actually makes for a very, very, very clean transition from the mind map that you create in iThoughts HD to the outline that you're looking at now in OmniOutliner. It really keeps everything in order for you. It looks really nice. It's very clean. The OmniOutliner software is sort of one of those single-use tools. You're not going to use it for much else, but it does outlining very, very well, and it's easy to use. So let's take a look at our outline and see where we can improve the flow of content and maybe add some new bits for you. So we're looking at our outlining section here because that is the video that I am making right now. And we want to talk about, we get into tools. This doesn't belong here. We get into tools, but from the start, and that isn't how we want to start a video, is with tools. We want to talk to people about why they would want to mind map. So let's do that first. And then why, and then we also want to talk about how, and how to actually mind map, or how to actually outline. So the why is going to include, we want that to outdent or indent, so I just pressed enter after Y, and then I pressed tab, which makes it indent for you automatically. So why we want to outline, it's perspective. We need to get a new perspective on our mind maps. See the order things flow in. And what else did we cover here? We also want to, because it doesn't require any tools. Okay, and then we come down to how, and then I'm hitting tab to make it indent. So how is we export from our mind map, open on our PC in either our Word or if we use OmniOutliner, our dedicated outlining program, and then we reorder and rearrange as necessary, add new topics we want to hit on, and we will also take more than 2 minutes. Take more than 2 minutes on it. Take more than I'm spending demonstrating for you in this video, of course. Tools for outlining. We have OmniOutliner. We also want to mention that this is available for Mac and iPad. Word or Pages, very good. Pen and paper, with the caveat on that being that it's not importable. And clean up a mind map. This is one of the reasons why we do mind mapping, so I'm going to stick it under there. So that's how you use OmniOutliner, and you've been able to see me kind of flesh out a mind map a little bit more than I was able to with the tomato growing example, right? Because this is actually a topic that I'm quite educated in as opposed to tomato growing. So once you're done, if you are using OmniOutliner, your outline can be exported into quite a few formats. including OPML, which we will use again in a future video. But you can also get into an Excel format, Word, Keynote, and other stuff. So whatever you're using, if you decide to go with OmniOutliner, I'm sure that you'll be able to get your data outside of OmniOutliner into the software that you'll actually use to write or script. Whether you'll use OmniOutliner or a simple Word doc to do your outlines depends on your budget, and in the case of OmniOutliner, if you have a Mac or an iPad, because they don't have a PC version, so you do need to have a Mac or an iPad if you're going to use OmniOutliner. But Word, the RTF files that you can get from MindMeister, that works just as well. Once everything is fully outlined for you, the actual writing will just flow. So let me give you an example of my workflow. On a really big important piece, I do a big important mind map first, and then I'll export it and outline it further before I get to the actual writing. I might spend a day or two just on the mind mapping and outlining process, and sometimes even more depending on the scope of the project. For a smaller piece, usually I will just outline it before I get to writing, and I'll skip the mind map portion completely. So in that case, I would be starting with a completely blank OmniOutliner or Word file, and then I'd just be creating the headings and then the subtopics underneath each heading as I go on and create my outline. Really take time here, people. I can't say enough how much this process makes the actual creation process so much easier. When you do the work up front, right, then the actual work on the back end becomes a lot easier. By the time that you've polished up your outline, your content should be 100% fully mapped out. And now it's just a matter of sitting down and putting the connecting words between the thoughts and points that you already know you want to hit. The hard work is figuring out what you want to talk about. And when you're done with the outlines, you'll have that done, and shipping will be that much easier.